Data from the National Association of Realtors tells us that 88% of home buyers purchased their home using a real estate agent in 2021. 100% of those buyers could have created thousands of dollars in donations to support climate action without any cost out of pocket by finding their real estate agent through Climate Change Realty. Welcome to the podcast. David, delighted to meet you. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. Great to have you. And, we always like to get the show started with some background on who you are and how you got to be doing what you're doing at the current moment.
Sure, you bet. Yeah. So I'm an architect, and I moved to Hawaii back in '88 and built a house actually on Maui that, I was trying to be as sustainable as I could. It was totally off grid. This was 30 years ago. And but they delivered the lumber for building the house, and it was just like, oh my God, that's a whole forest. And thinking that that's what's happening in every house in the United States. And so, really, the friend that was helping me construct the house, I was hammering nails, but he was an actual contractor, and he and I started the bamboo housing company, Bamboo Living, that next year. And so that's been now almost 27 plus, something like that. And the really back in '09, I had read about the amount of CO2 humanity was putting in the atmosphere, and I'd recently read an article on bamboo and the amount of carbon that was tied up in the plant itself. And I thought, oh my God, it's the fastest growing plant. It's got to be a good solution for climate change. So I kind of jumped in kind of over my head with that one. I submitted a paper for the World Bamboo Congress and got accepted on the speakers. And 2 weeks before the conference, one of the other speakers is the top researcher in the world at the time on bamboo, circulated his paper about why bamboo would not work for carbon sequestration. I was like, oh no. But then I read his paper and I thought, okay, I just have to address every one of Walter's issues, and then I would have a good strategy. So I wrote it up and sent it to him. And he said, yeah, that would work. Meet me ahead of the conference and I'll help you work out the details. So, it's the two big items is that bamboo, if you don't harvest it, once the canopy closes, the sequestration starts to flatten out. So being able to remove the mature poles opens the sun space for the plant and keeps the sequestration level high. And then to lock up the carbon, you've got to turn it into long-term durable building materials, things that you can't be making paper and chopsticks and stuff like that out
Single-use stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, where did you study architecture and where are you from originally?
I'm from Florida originally, and I studied in Gainesville, University of Florida there. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
When I went there, it was a party school. Now it's got a pretty good academic reputation. So I say my reputation has risen.
Well, that's good. What is it that drew you to the islands of Hawaii?
I came to visit my brother one too many times. I had an older brother that moved out here in the early '80s. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I want to kind of dive right into talking about before we get into the intricacies of how you're using bamboo. Would you mind explaining to people what bamboo is, where it's originally native to, and some of the interesting, characteristics of it?
Sure. There's about 1,500 species of bamboo. It's a giant grass, so it's an actual grass, and it's found already. It's already occurring on all the continents. But there are, out of that 1,500 species, there's probably a couple of dozen that are good for construction. So those have been my focus. I use a bamboo from Vietnam originally for the bamboo living houses, and with rhizome, we're using several of the giant bamboos. In the Philippines, it's called Dendrocalamus asper. In Florida, Dendrocalamus giganteus, and then a hybrid. So there's other species as well that meet those, the size and the speed of growth.
So it's like a grass, but it's not like it's more like has like the strength of a tree, no, or like a small
Yeah,
tree, but it grows
yeah,
like as quickly as a grass.
exactly, exactly. So if you look at Guinness Book of World Records, it's the fastest growing plant on the planet, and so it can grow 2 to 3 feet a day. The record's just under 3 feet, and it's so what it's doing. Yeah, it's shooting
2 to 3 feet per day.
day. Yeah,
That's
right.
even
Yeah,
more than it grows faster than seaweed does.
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, yeah, it's fast. So you're getting a 100 foot tall plant. The poles are called combs. So and each plant has a bunch of them, and it's putting out more every year. The plants themselves live 100 years, and you can harvest every year from them, and the plant just keeps generating more. It's like mowing the lawn. It just
Mm-hmm.
keeps stimulates growth, and it continues to put up new shoots. And so those shoots reach full height in just a couple of months. But then they're kind of pulpy at that point, but they're building structure as they leaf out. So they'll get 100 feet tall in just a couple of months, and then over the next couple of years, they get all of their leaves and branches and that big weight up there on a big telephone pole. And so by year three, you're getting structural quality material. And depending on the species, between year 3 and 5, you'll be harvesting that material for structural uses. And it's
Okay.
incredibly strong. It's more than twice as strong as the wood typically used for construction.
And there's so many incredible things to it. That's why I'm so
Yeah,
excited to have you here on the show today. One of the
thank you.
things I wanted to touch on was the kind of the versatility of it, or its ability to grow in different places. I think you said there were several different species, but I'm from a small, I don't know, I don't want to say rural, but like a small lush mountain town in northern New Jersey. And I remember
Hmm.
that someone planted bamboo next to their house, and they had a bamboo forest like right next to their house in New Jersey. So can this stuff grow like basically anywhere?
Well, there's different species. We're focused on the tropical, subtropical, because they're the
Okay.
fastest growing and the largest species.
Right.
Um, but there are species that grow, all the way up into Japan and China, and as you said, New Jersey, and but they're typically not the further north you're going, they're not as big and they're not as fast growing.
Okay.
But there's the whole southern United States could be growing bamboo commercially. Our
Very
focus has
cool.
been South Florida, which is ideal for the tropical clumping varieties.
Okay. Very interesting. Before we dive into Rhizome, I'd love to hear about your experience with bamboo living and actually building houses yourself out in Hawaii, and how that kind of
Sure.
business grew over the years.
Yeah, you bet. So that was really a 10-year labor of love. We needed to get the National Building Code standard to really turn it into a business, and finished that in 2004. So we've got a building code standard that basically covers the entire U.S. and yeah, so we can build anywhere in the U.S. and we built in a lot of places in the world. Actually, we've had our buildings go through multiple Category 5 hurricanes, 200 mile per hour at the site. Pretty incredible material.
Did they teach you about this at all while you were in school learning about how to build buildings?
No, not out of bamboo. I grew up playing in a bamboo grove in a neighbor's yard, and he's one of the friends I'm still working with. And then when I was in Scouts, we were building towers and bridges and all kinds of things out of the bamboo. So yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, when we started the company, we just made it up. We needed connections that the engineers could analyze, and we had to go through the national building code standard, all the testing that they require, which is pretty extensive. So yeah, it was quite a process.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can imagine. Well, I was gonna say I've seen the results. I checked out your website and the building,
Oh,
like the
thank
different
you.
models that you offer, and they look like
Sure.
such beautiful buildings. But I like love like
Thank you.
tropical beach vibes, so I might be
Mm,
biased, but they it looks like some
sure.
really really cool stuff.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. It was kind of like, what would it be like to be on vacation all the time? Come home to be on vacation. So, tried to design them to be kind of gorgeous and playful and all of that.
So when did the kind of switch go off in your mind that made you start thinking about things in terms of like carbon sequestration and reducing emissions? How long have you been concerned about those types of issues?
Yeah. So that was '09. That was really that, when I did that, the World Bamboo Congress presentation,
Right.
that really kicked in gear for me, um, the fact that this really needed to be done and the scale the impact that it could have.
Cool. So what is Rhizome? What's your mission? Why do you exist? And what are you trying to do?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we're on a mission actually to uh, kind of reverse climate change. It's like a regenerative technology. We just got chosen as a top 60 finalist for the X Prize Carbon Removal
Awesome.
Milestone Awards, and so with that, it was really about um, the really the what could be done at scale. And so we're in the Philippines. We're already committed to planting, uh, tens of thousands of hectares there. We're already harvesting the mature bamboo that's there. So it's really growing that operation there and then repeating that in other places around the world. So we've got a project that we're standing up in Florida right now, and then there's a number of other locations that we are, working on putting together a large scale supply chain for the bamboo, and then developing the products for the local markets.
So, am I understanding the three primary benefits of building bamboo correctly? Number one, it grows faster than typical lumber building materials. Number two, it is stronger than typical lumber. And number three, I suppose I think lumber could potentially draw down carbon as well, but because bamboo grows faster, it has the potential to draw down more. Or am I missing a detail there?
There's another piece there. Yeah, when you cut a tree, you kill it. When you cut the bamboo,
Oh,
you stimulate the growth. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
that's huge.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and that single plant can live for 100 years. So you plant it once, and you're harvesting for multiple generations.
Oh no, that's a massive,
Isn't that?
massive difference. That's like
Yeah,
eating the
yeah.
fruit versus killing the tree.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the rate of growth is so dramatically different. 1 acre of bamboo can produce as much material as 10 acres of Douglas fir and more than 15 acres of pine.
Do you
Yeah.
think to yourself, why does it have to be you? Why is it taking so long for us to be doing this?
Yeah, it was kind of like I thought if I put the idea out there, somebody would pick up on it and run with it. And I realized, well, we're going to have to do this. So, yeah, that's why I started Rhizome. And we're really, it's pretty phenomenal that because of all the avoided emissions, they didn't count those in considering for the X Prize. They're only looking at direct removal.
Uh-huh.
But with bamboo, where you're avoiding the use of wood, concrete, and steel, the impact is actually triple what it would be just for the carbon removal. So the getting to a level where there's 12% of global construction materials are bamboo based actually addresses 1/3 of our entire global human emissions.
That's incredible. Would you mind kind of just
Yeah,
briefly explaining some of the main issues with the way we build buildings now? I'm sure that you're the right person to talk to about that.
sure. Yeah, you bet. So the big piece there is uh, concrete and steel are hugely impactful. They're together about 15 or 16% of global emissions right now.
Hmm.
Um, and then deforestation is about another 20%. And then the interesting thing is because the bamboo is so strong, you need less of it. So you're saving more trees, more concrete, and more, more steel. In fact, on the weight basis, bamboo is actually stronger than steel. It's crazy, but it's about 2.5 times the strength of steel if you look at the weight basis. On a cross sectional basis, the steel is about twice as strong, but it's about 5 times as heavy, and
Okay.
that impacts you in particularly when you look at concrete in terms of large buildings. A concrete building, it takes 5 times as much concrete as it does to build that same building with wood. And with bamboo, it would be even less than that.
So, are you proposing that we replace these three primarily used materials in all building, whether they're commercial buildings or residential buildings, wood framing or steel framing, or and then concrete foundations? Do you think bamboo could actually replace all of them, or is it depend on the case?
It has that potential, but that's not necessary.
Okay.
What the potential is to hybridize. So using the high strength of the bamboo, the lightweight. So you'd still probably do concrete foundations. You might do the first couple of stories where you've got, for high rises where it's all parking with concrete, and then switch to, the bamboo above. They call that the podium, and then, building off of that. And then even at that level, the the you can optimize. So the bamboo might be the best, floor slab material, or columns, or you can kind of figure out. But you're really trying to get to that global 12%, and a big piece of that is building a very large supply of it, and then having the technology to build the materials affordably, so that they become really the cost becomes the driver for, addressing climate change. They're building cheaper, but they're actually saving the climate in the process.
Are there any like hidden downsides to this bamboo? It sounds like a pretty amazing material, but is it perhaps like maybe an invasive species if we grow it somewhere and it can kind of take over areas and suck all the resources out potentially?
Well, the temperate bamboos, yeah, that's true. Like you're talking about in New Jersey, is
I don't
those are
know.
running. Well, typically those are running bamboos. There are some clumping bamboos in temperate areas, but a lot of them are running species, and they'll, turn into a monoculture. They'll spread. Like the Moso in China, you see those photos of, whole mountain ranges just covered with bamboo, and it's pretty much a monoculture. It just keeps spreading and spreading. But the bamboos we're using, they stay put. They just keep getting bigger right where they are.
Oh. Do you know what it does to like the local like health of the soil in the area? Is it like conducive to like other species around it, or does it really like suck everything up?
It is. It's, it was. I'm quite certain it evolved in a climax forest, because that strategy of, shooting up 100 feet to get to the sun space, uh, and so the pieces there are like in the Philippines. We're doing reforestation of deforested areas,
Hmm.
and basically sadly, when they cut all their trees, they changed the microclimate, so it's drier, and now they get these brush fires in the dry season, and that kills all the little trees that. So the and the only thing that didn't get killed was the bamboo. So they've been planting bamboo for decades there because of that, and so there's a lot of bamboo, and that's why we're there.
Wait. What's going on there? Why didn't is the bamboo like less likely to burn as well?
Right. Yeah. And also uh, even if the top burns, the rhizome mat will just pop up new shoots the next season.
Like a fungi, kind of. like the mushroom coming out,
Yeah,
like
it's
this.
like you see grass that browns out and, a fire burns through. You get a rain and everything pops up green again. It's just like that.
Okay. Well, I'd love to hear like your plan and strategic model for converting this bamboo into like a global construction material that people can use all around the
Sure.
world. I'd love to hear the strategy, business idea behind it.
Yeah, you bet. So it's really in the Philippines, we're developing it as an alternative for hardwoods. It's really gorgeous material. It's free and clear of knots and takes stains really beautifully. For Florida, our goal is to develop it as the most affordable building material on the planet. So it's really as an industrial substrate material, and then once we've got that piece figured out, then we'll replicate actually both of those models, around.
Around the world.
Yeah,
So does that mean that you're growing locally and selling to local construction companies in Florida and the Philippines? You're growing it there and selling it there?
yeah. There's the opportunity there. I mean, we can ship to other locations, but the kind of the long term strategy is develop local markets. We just signed a uh, joint venture piece for India to do a large scale project there, and then once it's established, then really expand and replicate.
So when it comes to like the construction industry, I'm not completely familiar with it. Are there like large companies that are handling most projects, or is it usually like individual contractors taking on like specific tasks when and then they're
Um,
then getting from suppliers, you know?
sure, yeah. There's actually both. There's privately held companies, but there are also some extremely large public companies as well in the wood industry. And one of the things that we're doing is we're helping them solve some real big problems. Is they've been shortening the harvest cycle for the trees, and so they end up getting more and more sapwood, which doesn't meet the structural requirements. So they've been having to slough off the sapwood to non-structural uses. By adding the bamboo fiber into their products, they can actually increase their log utilization. So the bamboo is so much stronger that you can add, some of the non-structural material in the core of the products, and the performance is, excellent.
So as I know, concrete is the second most used material on the earth after water. So I'm wondering how much of building materials are made from bamboo now, and if everything about it is so fantastic, I'm just like why have we yet to use it as much? Is it
Sure.
what is it?
Yeah,
Where is it at right now?
I would say it's like there. It's hasn't started.
He's
It's
making a
just
little
getting
pinch.
started.
He's making a little
Yeah,
pinch with his
exactly.
fingers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Um, so uh, the piece is there's never been a large scale supply chain. I would say actually China has a $30 billion bamboo industry. Um, but if you go buy a sheet of 4x8 bamboo plywood made in China, it's $200 to $300 retail. So it's beautiful, well made, but it's not gonna replace wood, or concrete. So it's really got to be, a very large supply developed, and then industrial materials.
Are there any like long-term studies showing like the durability of building with bamboo? Does it maybe like change over time and age? Is there any buildings that have been around for like 20, 30 years that have
Yeah, I mean, there's some buildings. I was in a home in the Philippines that was 50 years old, and my buildings now are almost 27 years old. Yeah, the oldest is 27, 28. Um, and they're
looking
doing great. And
awesome?
like I said, they've been through multiple Category 5 hurricanes and multiple earthquakes up to 6.9. So Yeah, it's a phenomenal material.
Yeah, no doubt. Can you explain this 12% number that you're talking about, and how converting armor structure
Sure.
materials will relate to that?
Yeah, yeah. So one of the things that happens is the bamboo is sequestering carbon as it's growing. Basically, half of the weight of the bamboo pole is carbon. So what's interesting is the molecular weight of CO2 is 3 times that of carbon. So when you
Right.
look at a ton of bamboo, it actually is sequestering about 1.83 tons of CO2. So it's got more so CO2 locked up than the actual weight of the material. It's kind of wild, but that's the way it works. And uh,
How is that?
so
How is that? What was that? How does that work?
yeah, it's 50% carbon by weight, the bamboo pole, and
Okay.
then the CO2 is 3 times the molecular weight of that carbon. So for every carbon molecule, uh, you've taken for every ton of carbon, you've taken um, about 3 tons of CO2 out of the atmosphere.
And is it you just water it and put it in the sun and it'll grow like 2 to 3 feet in a day? Is that it? Did you add other fertilizers or something?
Well, you just need good soil. What we're doing in Florida is planting in diverted green waste, that's been composted. So, and the growth rate there is even higher than just sort of typical what you would see with a bamboo plant. Yeah, so it's an incredibly phenomenal material. So the plant is sequestering carbon. The soil around the plant is sequestering carbon. You till only once to plant the plant, and then it's a no-till situation for the duration. You can basically, between the rows, you can have like a grass mat that you can drive the harvest vehicles on. And then the so there's the plant CO2, and then the building materials. Once you harvest them, that's actually locking up that CO2, and then the avoided emissions. So that's why you get this big lever. One ton of that bamboo is replacing. Really, it's about 7 tons of concrete, and yeah, yeah, just because of the strength to weight difference.
And then, so you said it lives 100 years. Then what kind of happens at the end of its life? It just kind of weakens up at the root, and
Yeah, so the bamboo I played in is well over 100 years now. But yeah, but the plants can, it depends on the species, but they can have what they call a gregarious flowering, and at that point the bamboo will go to seed, and if heavily stressed, it'll kill the plant. So you can have a big widespread die off. But what's fascinating is you can be back in production in 6 years just by replanting at that point. So you get a whole century, you replant again, and then you're back up again in 6 years.
I think the most amazing part about this whole conversation is the correction that you made when I was talking about the three benefits is so significant that this is a truly renewable building material. It's like
Yeah,
it's even better than like biofuel because you just consume that and it's gone. If you were to take like corn oil, I guess corn grows every year. It's similar, but this thing goes really fast and you cut it down and it grows more and it continues to sequester more and more carbon. It's a massive
exactly.
opportunity.
Exactly. And it's very, very different from corn, because what happens with corn is you have to till. So you break the soil up,
Right.
and you damage all of release a lot of the carbon out of the soil back into the atmosphere. And, so then you've got this continuous tillage thing going on. And with the bamboo, it's one time, to plant it, and you're golden for a century.
Well, also in theory, is that if as a tree continues to grow, it usually supports more life around it and then plants more trees by releasing its seeds. I would assume that as bamboo continues to grow, the area around it would be, if it's at least if it's a native species, would continue to be benefited by the existence of the bamboo. I'm just theorizing. I don't really know.
Yeah, right. In the forest in the Philippines is what it's doing is it's shading out the grass that was creating all the forest fires or the brush fires, and then we're interplanting with the native trees as where we can, where the uh, the grasses are not going to catch fire and burn the little trees.
Gotcha. So what is like your long-term plans for this? Do you know anyone else who's doing something similar? How what are your thoughts on how to scale this to, like quickly replace building materials that are clearly inferior?
Sure. Yeah, I think we're looking for the funding for large scale funding to implement this. When I did the presentation for the X Prize, it was basically is how would I solve the climate crisis for 50 million bucks? And what's insane is it's actually doable. You do what we've done in the Philippines and just keep doing it over and over and over again, and what we're doing in Florida. So yeah, and then using the revenues from the existing programs to seed new programs, so it becomes a geometric growth over the next 30 years.
That's awesome. Perfectly regenerative business model. I like it a lot. Do you have your eyes on any other locations already?
Yeah, we do. We have a pretty good list already. Yeah, yeah, we've got relationships in a number of countries where, once we've got the funding secured, then we'll be diving in there. Yeah.
So does this particular species that you're interested in growing, is it only in like tropical or like subtropical regions? You can't really grow it in like somewhere in the middle of the states, something like that.
Well, we're focused on those species because they are bigger and grow faster.
Sure.
Um, yeah, yeah. And much of the construction over this next 40 years is going to happen in the global south. So really, and the default there is concrete. So really, they need a material that's more affordable than concrete and readily available that to drive a change.
So I could understand using it for like framing or as like panels, but would you make like a
Mhm.
pulp out of it to make like a concrete product from the bamboo?
We could, and we have done that. We haven't really commercialized that, but there's certainly that possibility. The challenge is it's the cement that has the heavy, the CO2
Carbon
emissions
footprint.
associated with it.
Correct.
So not, avoiding using Portland cement is a big deal for solving the climate crisis. And so it's again, we've already experimenting with making blocks to replace concrete blocks, but you're replacing aggregate rather than binder, so it's not as impactful for the environment.
Okay. So we've talked a fair bit about the material makeup of bamboo. At this point in current market conditions, whether they're efficient or not, how does it compare in cost, for example, say, to growing lumber? Is it even fair to even talk about that because we don't have large scale plants that are building this stuff?
Yeah, it's really it's preliminary. I mean,
Right.
it's yeah, the just looking at the numbers and the amount of material per acre and the cost of land, all of that. Uh, at scale, the bamboo is going to be more affordable uh, construction material.
What makes you say that?
Just the fact that you would need 10 to 15 acres of forest land to grow the same material you can grow on an acre.
That that's a pretty good argument.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the logistics, I mean, the logistics, you're not having to manage, 100,000 acres to feed one plant, or one mill. You actually, the logistics become a lot simpler.
Yeah, and then the logistics of carbon drawdown and potential to improve planetary health, not even just the CO2 emissions that you're getting from making materials out of bamboo that's sequestering carbon, but the amount of deforestation that you can prevent by switching could be like a double carbon
Exactly.
credit. You could 2x everything.
Exactly, exactly. You keep those. Yeah. And what the amazing thing is the asset of the trees for the lumber. The timber companies doesn't go away. The trees just keep getting bigger, and so if they delay their harvest 30 years, the benefit for the planet is huge.
Hmm.
And at the same time, when they cut it, they're going to have their, the value is going to be there.
Awesome. David, how could people support the work you're doing to kind of help you push this project along?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a website called Start Engine that's crowdsource crowdsourcing funding, and we've got a page there that you can invest. You can go to our website and learn more about what we're doing. Is called Rhizome Bamboo, Rizome bamboo.com. And yeah, and in terms of um, large scale investors, they could reach out to me as well. I'd be happy to do that. And I guess I can leave you my contact info.
Sure.
And yeah, yeah.
Is,
So
is
yeah, I'm basically David at rhizomebamboo.com. That makes it easy. Yeah,
Awesome. Is there
yeah.
anyone else, man? Anyone else who's trying to like push this revolution along, or is it just y'all?
Um, you know, I, I I think there's other folks that are engaged in it. That as I'm moving along, I'm learning more about different folks that kind of share that bigger vision and are trying to get projects up and running. But it's this is a big planet, and
Yeah.
so we need to get this done.
I think yeah, at some point you're going to see that a switch is just going to flip, and all of a sudden you're not going to be able to grow as much stuff as people want because it seems like such a no brainer for this material based on everything you've said today.
Well, what's amazing is the as I said is paper, pulp, and fuels are not good lockups for carbon. But if you are replacing trees, those trees are a good lockup. So if you don't harvest the trees for pulp and they stay standing, they're holding that carbon in storage. So shifting, the packaging industry and paper in general to, and it's not new science. It's actually already being done. There's bamboo paper out there already, so it's not nothing that needs to be invented. It's just
Right.
getting a supply that's scale, up to scale.
Yeah, it'd be nice to replace the toilet paper with bamboo too. I'm thinking of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, there is. One of our clients just bought a company. What's it called? It's Bamboo.
Nice. We
They
just
needed a little bit of rebranding, but
no, I like it. I mean, we'll always have a little need for toilet paper, but I think we should just make the switch and go to the bidets, man. I think it just makes a lot more
yeah,
sense than toilet paper in
yeah.
general. Yeah. Well, David, I've really appreciated your time today. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Mutual, Ethan.
Yeah. Do you have
Yeah.
any like final pieces of advice for young people who are passionate and getting involved in kind of projects like this and pioneering change?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say pursue, your passions. And I know there's a tendency with, a problem as large as the, climate situation to just say, well, what can I do? But there's a lot that each one of us can do. And, by teaming together with like-minded folks, again, like yourself, of just getting the word out there, building teams to work on specific solutions. And creative thinking. Really, dive down and look at where the problems are, and you know, and come up with solutions, and then you know, put a team together to implement them. That's and it's fun. I mean, it's a crazy amount of work, but it's way more fulfilling than just doing a job.
Yeah. Hey, man, I mean, what else are we going to do? I think working is
Yeah,
fun.
exactly.
Spend most of our time doing that. And you said there's an actual direct page where people can help fund the project. You had mentioned that before. Just
There
mention it
is.
one more time.
Yeah, sure. It's startengine.com. Their page for Rhizome, Rizome. I think it's startengine /RIZOME.com. Will take you right there.
Yeah, and it's going to be linked in this podcast as well
Oh,
for anyone
perfect.
who's
Okay,
listening,
great.
watching on YouTube or on any of the streaming platforms. David, thank you so much for your time. Keep up the great work. I look forward to hearing about the company continue to grow.
Oh, thank you, Ethan, so much. And thank you for your good work as well. So appreciate that.
You got it, man. All right, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
All the best.
So if you or anyone else you know is looking to buy or sell a home anywhere in the USA and would like to create thousands of dollars in donations without any cost out of pocket, please visit ccrealty.org today.